Okay, we'll start in a moment. I'm just doing some final adjustments, so give me 2 minutes and then we'll start. Yes, okay, I can see we're also live on Facebook. Just give me a second. I just make sure we get no backfeed here. Wait a second. Fresh. Nearly ready. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. Let's get the microphone off here. Okay. Okay, we're all good. Okay, now I'm going to jump in. Okay, hello everyone. This may be a bit of a surprise, but we're back again. This has been a crazy ride with the little crow, and I actually was going to get an expert on crows on our live show. And unfortunately, the little crow died, as you know. And I now have the honor actually to get an absolute expert, probably the leading expert in the world on crows, with 32 years of experience. I must just look up his CV, just 1 second, so I get it correct. So we're going to have in a moment Kevin Mcgowan, Dr. Kevin Mcgowan. He's from Cornell Lab of Ornithology in New York, and as you know, that's a very famous lab. And so we will have the pleasure of interviewing him. I strongly encourage you to ask lots and lots of questions, because there were so many speculations that we had here about the behavior. So I'm going to just jump out at the moment, and I'm going to get Dr. Kevin Mcgowan in now. Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us at this short notice.
Hi, it's good to be here. I'm sorry the story didn't have a happy ending, but the nature is intricate and interesting, no matter what.
Well, it certainly is, and I'm absolutely delighted that you could join us here. So Kevin, I'm going to I'm going to just put you in the top picture there, and I'm just going to take your name out. So there we are. Kevin, could you just give us a little bit about your background? I met you actually. I had the honor of meeting you in 2 years ago at the ornithological conference here in Vancouver with Professor Bird, and we interviewed you, and I thought your story is most amazing, and I thought of you yesterday when all this was happening. My goodness, what a time it would be to interview you now. There are so many open questions that we have about the crow. Could you just give the viewers a little bit about your background, your experience with crows and so on before we get into the topic? Thank you.
Sure. I mean, I've been studying American crows and fish crows, actually 2 species of crows here in Ithaca, New York, since 1988. And I actually got interested in crows while I was finishing my doctoral dissertation in Florida. I was working on Florida scrub jays, which was a very well-known, what we call cooperative breeder that have extended families. And I did field work for a number of years, and then I was trying to write it up, and it wasn't very fun. And I got distracted by some fish crows nest building, and I realized that when I went to the literature, we didn't know anything about them, and so I just kind of got into crows. I started around watching nests and things like this. And actually, when I was in Florida, at the University of South Florida in Tampa, I witnessed something very similar to this event that happened in your hawk nest, where I had a family of fish crows that adopted a blue jay fledgling for a while. So this is like, oh, this reminds me of something I already know. But I've been working on crows here in Ithaca. Mostly I'm interested in their behavior, their social behavior, their reproductive biology. And so for 20 years, my 30 years doing this, I climbed into crow nests to look at baby crows a lot, to measure eggs and nestlings and things like that. And then we would bring them down and tag them when they were about the same age as the little kid that was in your nest. And so, yeah, I know a lot about their development and behavior. We mark them as individuals, so we know them and can watch them throughout their lives, which we've had a number of birds make it to 19. So I've had one female that I knew as an egg that eventually we followed her breeding success for 14 years till she died at the age of 19. So I'm interested in anything about birds, especially crows. Yeah, I've handled a lot of little baby crows that look exactly like that little guy and unfortunate guy in the eagle nest.
Okay, let's just blend that out. Well, what I found amazing about Kevin, I've never had this before. Whilst we were preparing, he had his incredible long lens out, and he was taking pictures because he saw something in his garden. I've never had anybody like that before.
Always right here.
I admire that fully. I love the passion. This is just, I mean, we really have quite an honor. We're absolutely delighted to have you here. So, Kevin, I'll also show them a little bit about your background, but let's jump into the nest story here. I've actually got here recording from Mark Horner, who's a good friend of mine on his YouTube channel, who recorded this yesterday. And I'm just going to play a little bit. We don't know very much about anything really about the age, how old this crow could be, what could have possibly happened. We know it was carried to the nest. It was fairly well treated by the parents, surprisingly well treated by the parents, and probably, mistakenly crushed to death by the eaglet this morning. But it's really unusual. So I'm just going to play a little bit. Let's see if this is working now. Yeah, it is working. So I just have to find the right spot somewhere where you can actually see it a little bit better. I must just see if I can spool a little bit forward. There you go. There you go. It's you can definitely see it. Can you comment a little bit about this type of animal behavior? Is it unusual? And would the eagle, would the parents actually be able to feed it, or is there something about the nutrition of the little crow that is just so different that this would never work? So it's all yours now. Thank you.
Well, it was pretty iffy from the beginning that anything good would come out of this. It's interesting. I have to ask: is there footage of the crow being brought in? Do we know when it came in and how it came in?
I don't. That's a great question, Kevin. I don't have it. I'm going to wait for some of the comments here. So anybody who knows about this footage, I'm not sure, but that's a great question. Maybe even Lady Hawk or anybody else has seen the footage of it coming in. But as far as I know, it's fairly evident this happened 3 days ago, and it is evident that it was brought in, as food. That's as far as I know. But I'll watch for comments.
Sure, I expect that. I mean, the way the little bird's acting. For one thing, this bird is about 3 weeks old. When I looked at the footage from yesterday, it looked like It was just over 3 weeks old. And that's a long time before they come out of the nest. And they're essentially at that age, anything that moves might feed them. So they beg to it. And so you can see that with actually it looked like the adult crows were diving on the adult eagle there, those shadows flying by. And anytime there's movement, the little baby crow it begs. It's like, are you going to feed me? Can you feed me? And when I used to climb up in the trees and measure the crows when they were like 2 weeks old, and I would be holding them in my hand, and because the trees are so tall, where the nest height's about 18 meters, about 70 feet, something like that. And I had to use a radio, and I would measure them, and I would call down. And every time I did that, these little heads would come up. It's like, okay, the tarsus is, and they're, feed us, feed us, feed us. And then somewhere about the age this guy was, they start to realize that no, that's not mom and dad. But that doesn't take place actually for another several days past what the age of your little kid was. So at that point, they're hopeful, right? And again, think of this in a survival value deal, is that it doesn't make any sense for them to be afraid of things and try to get away from things if the only way they can do it is to jump to their death, right? And so once they get to be able so they can fly a little bit and don't fall, then they start to have a fear thing. That's when they start to realize, oh, you're not my mama and I need to get away from you. But this guy is still see him there hopefully begging at somebody moving there at the big eagle. It's like, that's not right, but maybe it'll feed me. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
that's fascinating, Kevin. Could you know that? I mean, this is all speculation. It would be interesting to hear your comment. But what we thought may be possible, one of the eggs actually. So in this case, it was the first clutch with two eggs, and one of them wasn't viable and actually disintegrated a few days ago. The eaglet that you see there is of age approximately 27 or 28 days old. Could it be that the parents are actually mistaking it for the second eaglet? Is that possible?
I doubt it, because the egg hatching was so long ago that they're probably way past any kind of counting sort of thing. That's not. I don't think that they're expecting to have two, and it's like, oh yeah, we have two now. No, that's too big a disconnect. But I think somehow the baby crow has come in and is not looking like food to them. And remember, there's a if you think about it, for predatory birds that eat other birds, there's a kind of a danger in eating live, cute baby birds in your own nest, right? Because there's a much bigger selective pressure against don't eat your own babies than, oh, I mistakenly brought in a baby of something else and I won't eat it. There's no cost to that. But if you eat your own babies, that's bad. And so there has to have been a lot of selective pressure to have some kind of decision rule in their brains that don't eat live babies in your own nest. That's my hypothesis about this stuff.
Oh
And
well,
so it got
that's
in as sort of as an accident, and it's doing enough things to make it look like the normal nestling eagle, that it's slipping under the radar for a while here and not looking quite like food.
interesting. So I mean, you see, we thought that maybe this little one was branching, but it wasn't. It wasn't actually out of the nest. It must have come from directly from in the nest. That's also what you're saying,
So
right?
sometimes these little guys end up on the ground for various reasons, but they no, he's not ready to get out of the nest at all. Not at all.
And can you estimate how many days it would have been to fledge from this approximately?
About 2 weeks.
Oh, that's a long time still. Oh my goodness.
And so this is again, I've handled a lot of babies that look just like this guy, and he's perfect for me as far as banding. That he's about the video, the image that I see right there. It's like, I wish he was 2 days older, but that would be right on our banding schedule. If I had climbed up and gotten that bird out, it's like, I'm not coming back in 2 days. We'll just do it now because it's just fine. And we do that we go up at this age to try to band them, because they're big enough at that age to hold the bands and tags that we put on them, but they can't fly out of the nest and they don't try to jump out of the nest. Because, as I say, once they get a little bit older, day 28 is the sort of average of when they suddenly realize you're not my mama, and they start. And they still have at least a week after that before they can come out. Most crows, baby crows can fledge at about 35 days old after hatch, but they're more successful if they actually wait to be about 40 to 44 days after fledging. And then they're fed by their parents for another month or two before they start to feed on their own. So I noticed there were some comment or questions about, could the little thing eat insects in the net?
Exactly. You're right. You're right.
He's a long way from being able to pick up anything on his own. It's frustratingly long sometimes. If people who've rehabilitated baby crows, which happens every now and then, it just takes them freaking forever to be able to figure out how to eat the food on their own.
Well, that's interesting. So, well, there are just so many questions here. I mean, let's assume that. I mean, this is like running around in a lion's cage. You know, that's what I always think. Um, do you think that crushing could have been accidental,
I,
or
I suspect it was accidental, although you have to understand that baby birds in a nest, and I noticed in the video from yesterday that this little guy kind of snuggled up to everybody. And that's standard. I mean, that's the thing, is it's like the nestlings like to be against each other because they keep each other warm. They like to be against the parent. And the parent likes to have contact with the babies. You know, so that's all, you know, the little guy was playing into the best things there, that he just came over and went up underneath the parent, and the parent's like, oh, yeah, okay. And maybe I should shade it and take care of it. And I noticed the three of them all snuggled up at one point.
yes, yes,
But baby birds do like to be on top of the pile. And so what we find with birds that have what we call hatching asynchrony, when they don't all hatch at the same day, and you get bigger ones and smaller ones, the bigger ones kind of climb on top. And so they have access to the food first when the parent comes in. And so there is, I think, a little bit of, well, that's great, but I want to be against you, but I want to be on top of you. And so I suspect that might have something to do with the eagle, getting the little crow underneath it. And then, as you say, not so much crushing it, but probably suffocating it. Birds are relatively easily suffocated because of their the way their lungs and their air sacs and things go. And that's what I suspect happened, is that big eagle. I mean, it's a lot of bird compared to that little crow. And if indeed it got underneath it and the eagle just sort of plopped down or went to sleep on top, that could easily have been, basically a smothering incident rather than a crushing. So I suspect that it was smothered to death rather than having internal injuries or broken bones or anything like that. I'm pretty sure there wouldn't have been any of that.
Yeah, here you see the size difference. It's quite incredible.
And it's so silly. I mean, because that little guy, he's in an odd spot, and nobody's hurting him, nobody's scaring him, and so he's just trying to figure out when somebody's going to feed him and where motion is, and then eventually, he snuggles up. He doesn't seem to be looking at that right now, but he's like, he is saying, "I'm hungry." The wave of the wings and the opening of the mouth. That's anybody feed me? Feed me.
Okay, that's the interesting question. I mean, there were, by the way, I see lots of comments coming in, so please go ahead, and I'm reading both the channels here on Facebook and YouTube. So go ahead and ask lots of questions. I'll read them out as best I can. But I'm going to I know there were a lot of discussions yesterday about the feeding as such. I mean, let's assume at one stage we did see a parent trying to feed fish. Would that actually have worked?
Could have, except for the fact that I think, as one of your commenters said, that eagles do things a little bit differently than passerine birds. That the songbirds, and crows are songbirds, even though they don't really have a pretty song. But the way the parents work is that in eagles, they basically hold the food and the babies grab it and deal with it. Whereas in most songbirds, the babies open their mouth and the parent has to hit the target and cram it in. And especially with really young birds, they have to have something in the back of their throat touched before they get the idea to swallow. And so you can see this sometimes. I had one of my colleague, Ann Clark from Binghamton University. She was one of the first people that put video cameras on nestling birds way back, and on red-winged blackbirds. And she has some video of, the parents coming in, and the babies are begging like this, and the parent comes in, and the kid just sits there with the food in its mouth, just kind of can't figure it out. And the parent takes it out, puts it in another kid who doesn't swallow it, and then takes it out and puts it in a third kid who finally swallows it. And so it's bizarre to watch this kind of stuff. It's like, come on, you guys, can't you do better than that? The food's right there. But it does take a number of sensory stimuli to do it. And as I said, these baby crows, they're not going to feed themselves for a long time. And so they don't know what to do if there's just food there. They don't know to reach out and grab it. And so yeah, it's possible that if the parent had dropped the food straight in, and if it was a small enough piece, that the crow could have gotten it. But it's kind of an unfortunate mismatch here.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you some questions here because I'm following the conversation. Kemal is asking, could it have starved? Let's say it would have survived. I mean, would you think it would have starved? It would have not been possible to survive, to survive if it hadn't been suffocated?
Yeah, that's sort of, I would expect. I mean, I was curious about that, and I wondered if the parents would try to feed it, and if so, how they would do it and how successful they would be. Because like when I watched the blue jay in a fish crow nest, the parents fed that guy just fine, because again, it was this baby in their nest, and it's begging, and when they beg, you stuff food in it, and so that worked great, and that bird survived for a couple of weeks. But this just seemed a little doomed from the beginning, and honestly, being suffocated was probably the best ending to the story.
Oh well, that's a positive note on this. Coming back to the feeding, I really know very little about it. That's why I'm asking. The parents often regurgitate the food. Is that a prerequisite really for feeding? Because eagles.
No, the crows typically don't actually regurgitate the food, which means it didn't go into the stomach. They bring it in a pouch under their tongue, in their throat, where they process it before they bring it in. So they'll sit on a perch and take something like a piece of fish and peck it into small pieces, and then bring it in and give it to them from the throat pouch. So they aren't really digesting the food for the young first. It's just a straight in thing. And so they could have done that fine. Again, if somehow the eagle had gotten a small enough piece that dropped onto the throat and hit that back thing, that would have been fine. But that's just asking. It's like too many things to do, right?
Have you ever? I mean, there's so many questions. Have you ever seen anything like this before? I'm curious.
Well, as I said, the only thing I can think of is the blue jay that I saw in a fish crow nest,
Right.
which I don't think had a happy ending, because it was there for a week and fed for a week, and would drop back down in the nest and sit underneath the female, and the parents. I don't think the parents brought that in as food, because again, the fish crows process stuff. They don't bring in live prey and then deal with it in the nest. They do something before. And I think that what I witnessed was a fledgling that was, hopping around in the tree, and eventually worked its way up and saw, oh yeah, this is like nest. I should go see what's in there, and got in when the parents weren't there. And then when the parents came back, there's a weird little mouth. But again, don't eat babies in your own nest. So, that's the only thing I've ever seen quite like that. Although there are things from these cameras, right, that where they brought in hawks or something like that. Wasn't there a red-tailed hawk or something?
Yes. I did 2 documentaries on that, actually, live on that. Exactly. That's completely correct. But then again, that's a raptor, right?
They're these, they're not really thinking beings the way we think of them. They do learn, and they do think, and it's not all instinct, but it's a lot instinct. And so there's a lot of instinct that takes over when you've got something that is a confusing situation that doesn't normally happen. And as I say, I think this little kid, he's sitting there and doing enough things that make him look like a nestling and not food, that they didn't think of him as food till he was dead. And then it's like, oh yeah, here's a piece of dead animal that I brought for my kids. And then they started dismembering it and feeding them. And that's perfectly natural, because that's what they think they're going to encounter. Is if there's not a dead baby in your nest is food, but a live baby in your nest is something you need to feed.
And Kevin, I'm just going to throw in a few comments. It's very interesting reading this in parallel. Lee van Leer says, Kevin is the instructor for the American Crow course online at Bird Academy. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That sounds fascinating.
Sure. I work at the Cornell lab, and I'm specifically I write online bird courses for Bird Academy. academy.allaboutbirds.org. And we have now more than a dozen online courses that you can take about bird identification, bird behavior. We have a big university level ornithology course that you can take online. But I got the opportunity to actually do a course about my own crow research that I've done with Dr. Ann Clark at Binghamton University. And that was a lot of fun, because I put together, we did it as a live webinar series first, and then made it into a course where you can learn about the natural history and social biology of the American crow, which is very complex and surprisingly very similar to our own social system in Western society. That they have extended families. The parents have, in my part of the world, not so much in your part of the world, there are differences, but where I work, we have the crows own a territory that they keep all year round, where the whole family stays there. The offspring don't leave home the first couple of years. They can stay for, well, we had one guy who stayed for 7 years, but we worried about him a little bit. It's usually more around 3 years or so before they go off and try to find their own family. But they can come and go. Everybody lives in a neighborhood. Right. Where they know each other, but you're not allowed to come over to my house unless there's a big emergency. Like if a great horned owl comes into the neighborhood, then territoriality is off, right? And everybody goes and works for the neighborhood watch, the neighborhood good. They also leave the neighborhood and go to places and congregate in places where they get food, temporary sources of food, very much like us going to work or to go to the mall or something like that. And the birds can come and go. They can go away for 2 years and come back and hang out with their parents. And there are almost no birds in the world that are like this. So it's a very complex thing. So we have the course talks about sort of the things that you might know if you just watch crows a little bit, but then it also goes into the stuff that we only know because we've marked these birds as individuals and followed them through their lives. And there's a whole lot of strange stuff going on in the crow world. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot.
I mean, there's just so many questions here, that are coming up. Yesterday, we saw, of course, how some adult crows came really bombarding very low, diving very low. So obviously, they're very conscious of the situation here. What's going on, right?
Oh yeah, and they're very protective about their kids. I mean, most birds are. Mm-hmm. Some of the birds that have no weapons and can't do anything, like a chickadee or whatever, they'll still talk about it a lot, and they'll still be angry, and they might dive down on things, but they don't have any weapons to do anything. Crows are in the middle ground, so things like eagles and the most well-known one is northern goshawk. That goshawks will rip open your scalp if you come near the nest and you don't even know it's there. They're extraordinarily protective, and they can keep things away because they have big talons. Crows are middle ground, so they can do something, but they can't really do a lot. But they're very persistent, and I mean they're good parents, right? That they've invested a lot in this kid. That he's already 3 weeks old, and they've fed it a lot of food, and they're not going to be able to, probably not at this late time of the year, replace it they probably will not re-nest if the nest failed. And so there's a lot of parental protection that these crows are feeling, and they're agile enough
Right.
that they aren't really in danger of the eagle jumping up and grabbing them. But crows have opinions, and they are very definitely they like to express their opinions loudly and persistently.
I'm just going to bring everyone up to speed. So I have got here Dr. Kevin Mcgowan here from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and he's a crow expert, I think it was more than 30 years now. And so we are discussing, this is footage from yesterday, not to mix this up, this footage from yesterday, this is a replay. Unfortunately, this little crow died this morning, probably of suffocation. And Kevin was saying this is probably the best thing that happened. So what we're discussing now is, in general, is the behavior of crows. There were so many things we didn't understand, and it's just so interesting. So that's to the next question, Kevin. You're talking about crows behaving differently in different areas. Tell us a little bit about your experience, because is it about the group behavior? What is so different about crows in different regions?
Well, in some of the regions, they do not hold permanent territories throughout the year. Some of the places in Canada, like the Saskatchewan, Alberta, the upper Great Plains, they leave that. They're out of there and go further south for the winter and then come back, which is understandable, right? In other places, it's really unclear to me what the birds would be doing in your area, but I know that in the sort of the Northwest, at least from nests that I know about in Montana and Idaho, probably the same up into BC. The birds seem to have smallish territories, but they leave them in the late summer and go off to other areas for where there's better foraging and things like that. And so that my birds, as I say, they're pretty much some of the breeding pairs on the territory part of the time, almost every day of the year. And with the family groups that can be up to 15 individuals, let me say that we've had several families that had 15 members of a family, mm-hmm. and that's mom and dad and kids from like 5 or 6 years ago. They're still hanging with the parents. And one of those families actually adopted a kid from next door, which I think was just a mistake, but there were so many mouths to feed that who knew? It's just hung out there and nobody knew. But they can go away, but they always know that if they come back to the home territory, that the rest of the family is going to come back at some point. And so they persistently stay together throughout the year as a family group. Mm-hmm. You don't know that about the birds in your area.
Yes, I just feel some. Well, I can't comment on that because we're watching eagles. All I see them dive bombing at the eagles all the time, right? Yeah. So, yeah. But they have an incredible coordination. I mean, that's very obvious. How they coordinate also these attacks. They don't go together. It's very much asynchronous, so it's perfect timing, right? So
well, they are good at that, at sort of not necessarily purposefully coordinating, but taking advantage of the situation that another crow creates. And so when they're going in, they know that, oh, he's made the eagle look over here, I'm going to come in from the other side. And they're really good at that. This guy looks, actually, I'm watching this footage, he looks a little younger than I thought.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
So he's, I probably would not put a tag on that guy. Yeah, nope, I would not. He just opened his wings. So he's probably, we're talking 18 days old.
Really?
Long time before he was ready to come out of the nest. So yeah, he must have been snagged out of a nest.
And Grace is asking, do crows mate for life like eagles do? Well, that's an interesting one. Okay.
Yeah, they do. I mean, we've had a few pairs break up, but not many. And yeah, they stick together. Once they've formed a bond, it's pretty much for good. So I'm trying to think how many. Probably the longest we've had two tag birds be together is probably about 8 years, something like that. But we know we've had other groups that we think where one of them was unbanded, where it was probably longer than that.
That's interesting. By the way, this is the footage again. This is footage from yesterday. So the little crow died this morning, just as I was actually setting up the YouTube, the live stream. It was suffocated. So just that you know. Also, this
He's
is
so
footage.
hopeful, it's too bad. He's just
I
sitting
know.
there. Like, yeah, feed me. Okay, no, I'll wait. I'll wait. Oh, yeah, you're gonna feed me now. It's like heartbreaking, poor little guy.
Yeah, so yeah, it's very heartbreaking. I know we were very sad this morning. Anyway, this is footage from Mark Horner's channel. So Mark Horner is my friend. So he did a screen recording yesterday, and this became quite popular because he summarized quite an important, let me just redo this because the stream got stuck. Just give me a second. This is a small technical error. Okay, let me reconnect, and that should be fine. Yeah, there we go. That's fine. Okay. Got it back now. Sometimes these things happen.
Yep.
There. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Goodness me. Can you tell us a little bit about the group behavior of crows?
Well, in most of North America, the standard group is the family. That's actually the family unit is the most important thing. But they also go off into large aggregations. And so if you see, like around here, if we see a cornfield in the fall that's been harvested, and you'll see 200 crows there every day. It's not the same crows every day. There's actually a big turnover. It's kind of like watching, if you're watching from above all the people going into the mall or something, and you'd see the same number of people every day, and you might see somebody that you recognize being there, multiple times or more frequently than somebody else, but there's big turnover. And so basically crows congregate together to forage, and they congregate together to sleep at night in the winter in these big roosts. And there's information there. Whenever animals get together in big groups like that, you always have to think about mainly two things. One is something to do with food. There's either a very big food source, or somehow they're helping each other be more efficient eating with other individuals around. And the other is protection against predators. That many eyes can detect predators way faster than if you were there by yourself. And so we see that even between species, that things like different kinds of ducks get together and different kinds of shorebirds get together because it's just safer to be with other vulnerable individuals because they can find the predators faster and you can hide behind them. If there are 1,000 individuals on, in the field and a hawk comes in to take one of you, you've got one chance in 1,000 of being taken. And
Right.
so there is safety in numbers for multiple reasons. And the crows definitely get into that mode, especially in the non-breeding season.
Yeah, is that similar to the flocking of sparrows also, that one sees that the flocking has the advantage that there's always someone who sees the danger first, right? And the whole flock reacts accordingly, right? So
And when they're in smaller groups, like with Florida scrub jays that I worked on and American crows too, they actually within a family do what we call a real sentinel system, where somebody forgoes foraging and watches while the other family members feed. And it's not a question of like at your feeder where there's only one little place they can go, and you just the ones who can't compete just wait till there's a chance. In these birds, no, they're actually foraging, and then they take turns at it, and that was some of the work that I did with my doctoral dissertation, was demonstrating that the birds were not acting at random; they were actually taking turns to be vigilant and to not be vigilant.
well, that's
But
very
that only happens when you get a situation with individuals that know each other very well, and usually in relatively small groups. You can see vigilant individuals in a big flock of crows, but they are not like supposed to be the guards. They just look like they're the guards, and they're taking a break. But they will alert the group usually on this stuff. I actually had an incident in California where I was watching a group, and there were these two crows sitting up, and they looked like they were guards, and there's a flock of about 50 crows that were foraging on the ground. And all of a sudden, this red-shouldered hawk came in and tried to take one of them, and the two guys that looked like guards, they didn't say a word. It was just like, meh, not my job. Whereas if that had been a family group, yeah, they would have been
wow.
that hawk coming in and telling everybody. And crows actually have a way of signaling increasing danger, that the way they make their caws, they can say, heads up, I see something. And then if the hawk actually comes closer and starts to be more threatening, they start calling faster. It's coming. So it's caw, caw, caw in the beginning, caw, 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 caw. And then it gets so fast that it's like, it's coming, it's right here. And it's really interesting because we can listen in on that and hear what the birds are saying, and figure out, like, I know when they're talking about a predator. And so it's like and this isn't just crows, it's lots of other things, chickadees and red-winged blackbirds and all of that, robins, they all have an alert call when they see something. And that's, as a birder, that's great, because it means, better look up in the sky, there's probably a hawk around. And the crows can definitely tell each other about that. So that's kind of fun to watch with family interactions.
Okay, we got lots of questions coming in. So I got at least 3 questions from Gentleman Ghost and then Proud Cat Mama of 3. I'm just telling you, you're all in a waiting queue here. And then comes Kathy. So, and by the way, thank you also for Lee for some donation to this channel. I really appreciate it. And thanks also for the stars on Facebook. I'll be sending you beautiful eagle images. Do send me your email address. So that I can thank you that way and show my appreciation. So that's SassePhoto@gmail.com. So thank you so much. So let's get to the first question now here. 1 second. Gentleman Ghost, good to see you, also New York. Hi, what is the difference between crows and ravens with respect to intelligence, if any? What a great question. Here you go.
Well, crows and ravens are different. They're related but different. The analogy that I use to think about what are they, it's like a tiger and a leopard. They're clearly related, have a lot of things in common, but a lot of things that are different. Crows and ravens are the same kind of thing. Crows are more group oriented and are smarter about some social stuff than ravens, but I mean, they're all intelligent. Ravens probably are a little more like us, thinking about things and figuring out puzzles. But if you look at brain size to body size, crows actually have bigger brains than ravens. And there was a study done by an Austrian group out of Vienna that looked at these were carrion crows, a different species of crow, but very similar to American crows, and the common raven, same thing we have here. And they looked at how they reacted to novel things, and learned that that a person was okay and wasn't going to scare them and was going to feed them. And what the one result that they said that I noticed that they didn't notice was that the crows learned to be tame with a feeding person, but then when another person came in to feed them when they were like 28 days old or whatever, that was not okay, that they were afraid of that. Whereas the ravens were like, a person's coming in and is going to feed me. And to the crows, it apparently is, they care who the individual person is. It's not just learning people are okay. It's like, that person was okay, but I don't know about that. And so the researchers who were fairly raven biased actually were saying, oh, well, the ravens learn faster than the crows about people. And I'm thinking, no, that the crows are actually have a better handle on this. And so there are differences in the way that they view the world that probably is based on their social system. But it's kind of hard to tell apart who's smarter than whom. Ravens probably would figure out some of the tasks, or most of the tasks that we would set for them faster than an American crow would. But that's splitting hairs on who's smarter than whom. Different intelligences, and it's hard to define what intelligence is.
Intelligent. Here we go. Yes.
Like, I mean,
Yes.
is it intelligent to be able to fly from Canada to Argentina
Mm.
and then come back and find the same bush nested in the year before? And we would say no, that's got to be instinct, and it seems pretty smart to me because they have to learn where that bush was. But we don't call that intelligence because we can't do it. And so,
Right.
there are a lot of things that you got to be careful. You take something like a chickadee that has a brain the size of a hazelnut, and they can store 1,000 little pieces of food all over the woods and remember where they hid it and find it again and
Oh,
again.
that's a great answer and also a great question.
I couldn't do that. So, but clearly they're learning and have that ability. And so, again, different sorts of intelligence in different sorts of individuals.
Proud cat mama of three. Dr. McGowan, at what age do crows start to breed?
Well, we've never had a crow breed before 2 years old.
Hmm.
And most of them don't start they usually start somewhere between 3 and 5. Females breed a little earlier than males because the adult females die a little faster than the adult males. And so there are more breeding opportunities that come up. But yeah, somewhere between 2 and 5, 6 is normal. So a few take longer, but we've never had anybody, and I suspect there are no corvus, none of the crows and ravens that breed at 1 year old. That would be very unusual. A lot of birds do, blue jays do, scrub jays don't. Um,
Amazing, amazing. 1 second, I'm just going to rewind this so we can just continue seeing this. Okay, because it's very fitting. Next question from Kathy Stelz. Where are we? Do crows rob babies out of nests also?
Not crow babies, but sure.
But sure. Okay.
Other young things, are they? Yeah, I mean, look at it. They brought that baby in there because it's tender and juicy, and I mean, it made a good meal, and so yeah, there are crows are what we call mesopredators. They're sort of in the middle group.
Okay.
But they do most places the nestling baby birds is a very small part of the diet, but yeah, they're happy to eat a baby bird, and who wouldn't? I mean, I've got chicken in my refrigerator right now, and I just bought 3 dozen eggs today to last me for through the stay-at-home stuff for a while. So yeah, sure, you bet.
So some people are saying, could I please put something else on the screen because they can't bear it? So I will put something else. I'm going to show you something else. So just give me a second. Actually, I will show a little bit, and I'm going to put it on silent here, about, let's just see, yes, let's show you an action here, which is really great. So I won't put any sound on it, but
I do have to say, though, to add to that last question,
yes.
is that in most places, the main predator of baby birds are squirrels and snakes. Squirrels
Okay.
in the north and snakes in the south. And
Well,
that's after time. Studies have shown that at least half of the predation on baby birds is squirrels and snakes. And then a mix of predatory birds and insects and other birds. And crows come actually, a recent study that looked at this using cameras on nests showed that crows were just slightly above white-tailed deer in eating baby birds. So this shows the video on there now shows the wing tags that we use to identify the individuals. 5G actually turned up the other day. That was from 2012, so it's an 8-year-old bird that attempted to breed at a spot for a while, and then we kind of lost touch with. But somebody far afield sent me a photo that looks like it might have been him just the other day. Yeah, this is a lovely Cornell compost facility where they're doing.
One second, I got some feedback. I don't quite know where this is coming from. That's weird. I had just had some feedback. I hope that loop is gone now. Not quite sure what happened there because we were fine all the time. Are you still there, Kevin?
I'm still here.
Okay, it's something weird. I'm just trying to figure out why this is the case because we were all fine. Okay. Okay.
All right. Now we're birding with Tom Schulenberg.
I'm a bit at puzzle now where this is coming from. Do you hear? I'm just talking to the audience. Do you get feedback now, loops, or am I the only one hearing this? I apologize for that, but sometimes that happens during a live stream. I haven't no feedback on YouTube. Okay, thanks, Mark. Then it's some strange loop here, some error that's happening only on my side. Thank goodness. Okay, sorry, Kevin. Let's go on. Okay.
Tom is one of the knowledgeable ornithologists about South American birds. And he works at the Lab of Ornithology too.
Okay, sorry. One second, Kevin. Can you still hear me?
I can. I just heard a raven out my window.
Oh, okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, I was just trying to see what the problem here is. I'm just going to try and blend myself out here. Okay, I seem to be in there's some audio problem on my side, which doesn't seem to be. The sound is fine, fortunately for everyone else. So I don't know what's going on. This is technology, you know.
A lot of pieces to it. A lot of pieces to it. That's the thing.
Yeah, and it won't stop. So I'm trying to get. And anyway, Kevin, I'll let you talk for a while. I'm going to try and sort this out in the meantime. Just tell us a little bit about this video that we're looking at. Sorry.
I'm not seeing a video right now. I'm seeing me.
Oh yeah, you're not seeing the video. Hang on, sir. Okay, that is correct. You can't see a video. Here you go.
Okay, so basically these videos are put together to talk about how we use binoculars, and they were produced by Swarovski Optic, but we never actually. The Swarovski optics are strategically placed here, but we're more talking about the value of good optics for a professional ornithologist and a crazy nut birder, the way Tom and Ken Rosenberg and I are, because optics do matter. And for me, I'm trying to read tags all the time. So I'm trying to, I'm not just getting big black or big color pattern images. I'm looking for detail. And so I carry inconvenient binoculars that are too big to be nice and fit in a small pack, but I'm willing to do that because I appreciate the difference in an image with high quality optics versus low quality optics, which doesn't mean you can't do birding and see a lot of stuff with the cheaper binoculars. But when you do this every single day of your life, we kind of get to the point where it's like, no, I'm gonna stick with what I got. So, but it was kind of fun doing this in the nicely produced videos. Kind of fun to watch, pretty birds. And say you can read Swarovski there, even though the word Swarovski never left our lips on camera. So And Tom's a crazy person. His yard list is all, and he spends so many hours scanning the skies to see. He has actually a good vista, and he puts in more eBird checklists than almost anybody I know, except maybe my son, who's also a crazy person about this stuff. But some of us get it. I mean, and the thing is that it's all a part of bird appreciation, from watching the eagle cams to enjoying a bird coming to your feeder in your backyard, or spending 30 years watching one of the most common birds in North America do new things every day.
Yeah, Kevin, I'm just going to stop right there because I have a question actually that coming in. What are the best binoculars for birding?
The best binoculars for birding are the ones that you can use and you take with you into the field. Okay, so I've got a couple of pairs of relatively expensive and excellent binoculars here. These are Swarovski 12 by 50s. These are Zeiss Victory 8 by 42s, and they're spectacular. They're also extremely expensive. And you can this is a wonderful age to be buying binoculars, actually, because you can now buy for 2020 American dollars, US dollars, you can buy for $300, $350, something, the optical quality that back in the 90s you would have had to pay in the 90s US dollars $1,000 for. The optics and the chemistry of the glass has become so advanced that you can get really very impressive binoculars for $200. You can get totally usable binoculars for under $100. The ones that people consistently rate very high are the Nikon Monarch series as a sort of a best buy, the best quality for the money. But there are things like from Celestron and Zeiss, and that they're in those couple of $100 range that are really, really good. When you get into the really high money things, they're all spectacular. So if you want to spend, over $2,000 for a pair of binoculars, then Swarovski, Nikon, Zeiss, Light.
Kevin, do you actually use binoculars with image stabilizers? I'm just curious.
The thing is, I would love to have a pair of image stabilized binoculars right now, but because I'm getting old and I shake, and my camera has a stabilization thing, so it helps me there, but my binoculars don't. But the thing is that they're still not a stabilized binocular that has the quality of the image that comes through with the high-end binoculars. And so what I'm looking for is detail and sharpness, and I might try some others out again, but I have one friend who really likes image stabilized binoculars, but for the rest of us, it's like they're muddy. They're just, you can't see the crispness of the image there that we get from these other high quality binoculars. And some of these things really do make a difference. I remember I was
right
with a bunch of bird people at a Swarovski opening, and we had they had brand new pairs of binoculars, a new design, and I had older, bigger, clunkier ones. And we were looking at a gray wagtail, and we had the first two pair of binoculars, the brand new ones, and for the 8 by 42s were like, I think it might have an eye line. And then with the 10 by 42s, it was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it has an eye line. And then I looked at my 10 by 50s, it's like, it's got an eye line. It's just obvious. And so that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for, is that, yeah, I want to make sure it's obvious as best I can. And none of the image stabilized binoculars hit that optical mark, the quality of the image yet. I'm hopeful, because seriously, they came out with image stabilization in binoculars 20 years ago. Yes. And it's like got to be able to marry these things together, because I know the technology exists somewhere for us to do that. And I want that. And I know a lot of other people do too.
Very good. Kevin, I think unfortunately I still have a bit of feedback, so I'm trying to always filter your words out. I don't know. That's technology, just the way it is. But anyway, I think I'm just trying to see if there are any more other questions. Would love to take a picture from my binoculars. Is that even possible yet? Asked Dolly Queen. Yes.
Sure. Yeah, there's a number of adapters. I actually don't have one. I have the half of it on my phone right now. I have the
That's phone scope. I recognize it. Yes,
yeah,
I
yeah,
recognize it.
and yeah, that's the fun thing about the
Hmm.
digital cameras, and is that you can do it. Phone scope makes adapters for your smartphone specific to the size of your binoculars. So again, I don't have one here, but I can show you the basic idea is that you take your binocular and let me do it with this.
Yes, yes.
And you take this, and they actually have an adapter that fits on the phone with a circular cup, so that you can line up this right with it and take a decent picture. You need an adapter if you want to spend some time practicing with it. You can actually, once you know where your lens is and all of that, you can just line it up with the. You just watch for the little ball of light and try to do it that way. So it's certainly doable, and I've done that for a very long time. There's something that I absolutely have to take a picture of, but it's hard to get really good pictures that way. But you can definitely get some fun stuff. I mean, doing this sort of what we used to be called digiscoping, or phone scoping now, is a lot of fun. I highly recommend it, because if you don't want to get a big fancy camera and lens like this isn't that big and isn't that expensive, but it's expensive enough. This is a commitment, right? To use binoculars that you're already using and put your camera up to it.
Right.
I highly recommend trying it out.
Okay, let me see if there's some. Yeah, they understood that with the adapter. Let me just see if we have any other questions here. One second. I see so many questions here. Go through the list. Oh yes, Gentleman Ghost here. Is there any location where crow density is extremely high, like the bold places where we are here in on the Pacific Northwest?
No, well, it's all changed since West Nile hit. The highest density of crows nesting used to be in the Midwest of the United States. It isn't so much anymore. What's happening in the very west coast of from Vancouver down into Seattle and that kind of thing is the birds are changing what they've been doing, and they've been coming into urban areas, which has not happened forever. That where I live, crows were not urban birds until the 1980s. I'm not sure about the timing in the Pacific Northwest, but things are changing a little bit. I'm not sure right now where the highest densities are. I know that the Midwest got hammered by West Nile in the early 2000s and lost, in many places, lost 75% of their population. Right. And some of those still have not recovered to the points where they were before.
Okay. By the way, this is a live view that we have here from the nest. So just that you know, this is now the live view, right? So just those of you who just came a bit late, the little crow unfortunately died this morning, at least Pacific time this morning. So what we're actually doing is we're interviewing Dr. Kevin Mcgowan here from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and asking him for his expertise of what could have happened, how old the crow was. Could you give us just a quick summary again, just your assessment of the age of the little one, because I think you did some correction, how long it would have actually taken until it would fledge from your latest view?
Right. When I saw him begging with his wings out, I had thought the bird was about 3 weeks old, somewhere in the 21 to 23 day age. But his wings look smaller than that. And I suspected he was probably just under 3 weeks old. They typically don't fledge till they're 5 to 6 weeks old. So he still had a
Long
long way
way,
to
long
go.
way.
He would have tried to get out of a nest.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think Kevin will. I mean, you've been absolutely wonderful. So, by the way, the technical problem has been resolved. I managed to resolve it. I could hear you again. So
Oh, that's good. That's
that's
good. I do want to remind people that if you're really interested in crow behavior, there are a number of places you can go. I have a website that I haven't
yes.
updated for a
Okay.
decade, um, but we also are offering a course on crow biology at Bird Academy at Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Just Google Bird Academy Cornell courses, and it'll take you there.
Yeah. 1 second, Kevin. I'm just going to try and go to your. Let's start with this website. I'm just going to show it quickly. 1 second. Okay, I'll just get. Wait, I'll move you out of the way. One
Yeah.
second.
So let me point out the image up on the left there with me horrifying a nestling crow, right? Where I'm actually about to take it out to bandit. I think, with no real firm evidence, that could be the first selfie ever posted to the internet. Because I took that photograph in May 2000 and put it up on my website that I was working with then.
Right, right.
And so I could be wrong, but it's very possible that that's the first selfie ever posted to the internet.
Good for you. So I guess the links that you were talking about here, the Academy must also be some.
Not on there. No, that's not on there. This is an old website that I
Oh,
actually can't currently.
okay,
So,
okay. Bird Academy. Here we go. There's something here.
oh, this is going to be the intro video for the Bird Academy.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's right. That's the intro video. Do you have the website here, Kevin? Maybe I'm. What about this one? No, this is about you, of course.
Yeah, yeah. If you type in Bird Academy
Okay,
Cornell,
okay. Let's see. There we go.
course catalog is the yeah.
Is that it?
Yep.
Perfect.
And then if you go to the course catalog,
Okay, hang on, hang on. Course catalog. Got it. Yes.
then scroll down and you should see the crow course in there. As I say, we have a number of courses for people. There it is. Anything but common, the hidden life of the American crow.
Fantastic. Look at that. Absolutely incredible. By the way, how much do you overexpose to get crows like this? I mean, you have to really overexpose.
Well, I wish that was my photograph. Yeah, it is. You know, it's always a challenge, and where I do a lot of censusing at the Cornell Compost Facility, which is a dump basically. In the winter, I'm trying to take pictures of crows, and we get like 10 species of gulls that come in there, and so I'm interested in taking gull pictures too, and getting crows, you know, an all blackbird and gulls, some of them are all white birds, properly exposed is a challenge. It's totally true.
Yeah, I mean, we have that problem, of course, with bald eagles. We have this very white head and then this very dark body. So no matter how you do it, you know.
That's right. That's right. That one in pink, that's my photograph.
Oh, that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Wow. Well, let me see if there are any other questions. So yes, Mark has given some links here. I'm just trying to see anybody else. Yeah, Bird Academy. Thank you, Ursula, for pasting it on Facebook. So she's given a link. I'll just copy that link 1 second that she's given here. And I will copy it to YouTube too. So you all have that. Copy link address. And then you can, 1 second. There we go. That should be it. Oh, it's more than that. Link is too long. Okay, that link is too long. I have to find a shortcut for that. 1 sec. Okay, but anyway, I'll put the link below the conversation. It's not a big deal, so I can still catch up with that. Okay, I think Kevin, we've stressed you enough, and I think it's good to end it here. And I mean, you've given us incredible insight on on the behavior of crows. There's a lot I have certainly learned, and I think we all have. And absolutely, I mean, a lot of the myths that we came up with yesterday have been definitely removed. So thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope this was a little bit enjoyable for you too. And anyway, go to the Bird Academy. And so Kevin gives these courses, as you know, also on crows. With that type of experience, would you say you're probably the leading expert in the world on crows? Could we say that?
I probably spent more time thinking about crows than anybody else.
Well, that's incredible. Yeah, just maybe one final question.
Let's say I'm one of them anyway. So yes, I'm pretty experienced with crows.
Yeah,
I want to thank you for inviting me into this. This is one of the things that I say is I've been studying the American crow for 32 years, and I see new things every day. And this little guy in a bald eagle nest, that's a new thing for me. I have not seen that before. So thank you for bringing it to my attention and letting me share in the observations. I mean, these cameras on nests are amazing things that we're getting to look in the lives of birds that we've never been able to do before. And it's just so exciting to be able to find out this stuff. So I'm a scientist, and basically scientists wake up every day hoping they'll learn something new.
I agree.
And these cameras are just awesome. Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Yeah, and one final question, of course. What is, I don't know if you can recall what's the most amazing thing that stunned you? Because you say you wake up with a curiosity every day, and that's really the scientist in you, which is wonderful, which I completely recognize, of course. But what is the single most crazy thing that you ever discovered or came across?
Oh, that I came across?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. Okay.
Honestly, the single most surprising moment of my career was when I was watching that fish crow nest in Florida, and all of a sudden the female or the male is sitting on the edge of the nest, and all of a sudden this baby blue jay pops up from underneath her. And that's not a significant thing, but it was the most surprising moment, I think, of my career. It's like, what?
Well, that's incredible, huh? That's incredible. But this is also quite a highlight here, right? Even though it was a bit of a low light today, but
I mean, it's a fascinating story. Again, it's really very illustrative of the combination of forces that go into shaping animal behavior. Is that again you got to feed your babies, but you don't want to eat your babies, and so there are these little things that are in the brains of birds that are weighing. We think of making conscious decisions, but in fact, a lot of the things that people do are not conscious decisions. Your brain has some deeper biology that's trying to work its way, because that's what's been selected for. That's what evolution is shaped for, and it's always a trade-off. And so this is a very obvious example of the trade-offs, right? When you see everything working perfectly, you just think everything works perfectly, and this didn't work perfectly. And so that's where we get to see where the interesting things are. It's like the old adage, the exception proves the rule, which means tests the rule, not means that it actually works, but it actually tests the rule. And so this is an exception, and it allows us a moment to actually try to think about what's happening in this nest. And we don't get that all the time. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I always say it's the last question, but here comes the last, and the very last question, because the truth is that it just goes on. You're so popular here, I can't help it. Dr. Mcgowan, did they raise the baby blue jay?
They did for a while, and then it just disappeared. And so what I think was that there was kind of this protective bubble around the nest, that the thing says don't eat baby birds in your nest. But I was afraid it was eventually going to get outside the protective bubble of what was considered the nest. And then the parents are going to wake up and say, oh, here's a baby blue jay. And I know that they were feeding baby blue jays to their nestling, because I found some parts to it underneath the processing station that the dad used.
Wow.
So I wanna hope that it got off there and flew away, but the pessimist in me says it might not have. So.
Well, you certainly have enlightened us. I can see lots of comments. I think a lot of people, including myself, are going to look very differently at crows now, appreciate them in a very different way, which is absolutely wonderful. So,
Very
so
cool. And very good parents. That's what those guys are doing. Is like, my baby. I can't believe you took my baby, and they're not going to let it go. So.
right. Okay, well, that's well. Well, perfect. Well, anyway, Kevin, that's been the most wonderful, spontaneous interview. I really appreciate you coming online so incredibly fast. That was really out of the blue. So thank you so much for being with us. And we really appreciate it. We've got lots of comments here. It just goes on and on. This is, by the way, available on for replay both on Facebook and YouTube. So for those of you who've missed the beginning, you can go back and see it. And thank you also for moderation from Mark Horner. Thank you for all the kind donations. Don't forget to send me an email here. I'm just going to put my email on top here. So SassePhoto@gmail.com. So I will definitely send you some beautiful eagle images that I've taken in appreciation. So thank you very much, everyone. And thank you especially to our guest, Kevin Mcgowan here. Thank you.
You're welcome.